The importance of lyricism in music is honestly one that handshakes nicely with the music in the best of cases and causes instantaneous memory. It's what causes so many of our social media statuses here in the digital age to perhaps have some sort of lyrical content as either its basis. We talk about this quite a bit, whether it be in pop, whether it be in classic rock, or whether it be in any form of musical expression. Sam over on the Patreon page wondered what my thoughts were on classic rock and heavy metal lyricism, whether I preferred story-based lyrics from, albums such as 2112 or Operation Mindcrime, or if I enjoyed things that are more based around aggression that you perhaps find in thrash or death metal. For those of you who want to get in on the Patreon action and have a video made in the future here on the CKN channel, there's a link in the description where you can get in on the fun as well. Whenever it comes to lyricism, though, we have to speak about the other side to understand sort of where I come from with this, considering I played guitar and was taking lessons for about a year or so before I went to college and then sort of, fell off with that. So I was never an instrumental guy, which never matched what my brain would have expected that I would be. It was never something that I picked up very, very easily, but I wrote a lot. I mean, from the time that I was really in middle school all the way up into present, I wrote a lot of lyricism personally. Some people would consider it poetry, but I was able to assemble it, give it a little bit of sense, and call it albums, I guess. It just shows that I am a dork, and I'm A-okay with that. But lyricism in music is not always necessary, and we've seen that in the number of instrumentals that heavy metal and other styles of music have given us. We see that in perhaps the blues, for example, the lyrics do have an important meaning. However, the musical expression that is provided by the guitarist or the instrumentalist also is able to provide a certain level of emotional registry, and that's sort of the critical thing that we need to take from this, is that both the lyrics and the instruments need to purport and really deliver some sort of emotional registry. Now, in story-based albums such as 2112 or Operation Mindcrime, you get engrossed in that story if it's done well, and that's where lyricism can really shine, because it can be very much like a film, as we saw just recently with Dream Theater's The Astonishing. Either that, or it could feel like you're reading a bit of a musical novel, which is also a terrific feeling. Really, the concept behind concept records is to try to give everything an overlapping theme. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a flat-out story that involves characters. It can be based around certain topics. And this is also interesting, and also is part of the reason why I have such a drive toward progressive music. You will find that in progressive music they try and not more often succeed at telling some pretty lavish tales, either that, or they explore some of the wonders of the universe, the philosophical nature of this world through song, and the lyrics will sometimes back that up in other portions, or other times it seems like it's a bit nonsensical. I think that lyrics play an important role in music in both settings, in both those story-based concept albums, as well as the aggressive nature that you get from thrash and death metal. So in reality, I don't have a preference between those two. I find that all of them have a lot of meaning, and the reason behind that is the tone that it really delivers. Imagine if you just were listening to an instrumental death metal band, and imagine listening to 12 tracks of, say, The Bleeding by Cannibal Corpse. Would that album have that same potency if it didn't have the lyricism, if it didn't have that dirty, grimy lyricism, that very sort of over-the-top and extreme lyricism that comes with it? Or would it simply seem like a lot of noise that's put together in great arrangements, and that's it? Really, the lyricism in a situation like that is absolutely necessary to couple with the music to provide part of the atmosphere, but also to kind of give that bigger-than-life horror movie, holy crap feel that albums like that are able to deliver. A band like Death, for example, was able to really talk a lot about philosophy of life and speak about other systematic ideas throughout lyricism, and based around how interesting and unique that discography became as the years progressed, we started to see also the lyrical evolution of Chuck and the lyrical evolution of the band in general. And we see that quite often, and we see how perhaps personal experience even plays a large role in how lyrics get shifted. You know, you take a look at a band such as Iced Earth, where September 11th impacted Matt Barlow a good bit. So you will see some lyricism now that does have a bit of an American register to it, you know, a little bit of that, you know, that horn of patriotism. And then you also take a look at bands like Whispered, which we have talked about, that have something that they just prefer above other things, something that they are very deeply interested in, and they transform that into the entirety of their lyrical content, or at least a healthy majority of it, to really showcase themology. And once again, as I stated before, with Whispered, their music is able to couple that theme in order to create a full atmosphere. So essentially, you can have music that sets up theme, that sets up atmosphere, that stands very well on its own without lyricism. It does take a little bit of imagination. It does take a little bit of thought. It does take a little bit of forward thinking. But whenever it comes to lyricism without music in heavy metal, it's something that only works very, very slightly. Whenever it comes to only having lyricism as opposed to no music. Now, you're not going to hear a cappella all that often in heavy metal. It's not really the point. But you are going to hear moments where the music rests, and you hear perhaps a soft voice, or perhaps you hear a gruff voice, whatever it may be, to try to deliver a line of potency. You hear this sometimes in elements such as hardcore or deathcore, or even in death metal, to hear a big line delivered in a crushing, booming voice prior to a breakdown. And it's almost a signal. It triggers something in the head of the listener that what's about to happen is going to be a massive, massive change. It sort of acts as a setup. But lyricism itself is not necessarily in need of being a classic work of literature. It doesn't have to be A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. It doesn't have to even be the Da Vinci Code in order for lyricism to have a lot of meaning. One of the primary reasons why lyricism is so important in music, and especially important in our lives today, is applicability. You know, hearing some lyrics that make you think are only going to apply to a certain amount of folks. There are many that want to hear lyrics and hear words that apply a little bit to them. That's the reason why you see so many of the same lyrics perhaps echoed by similar individuals, those that are in similar situations or enjoy similar styles of music. It just becomes an echo of what they are all about. Either that or the lyrics themselves speak to them personally because it echoes a situation that they're currently going through. So lyricism is an important tool. It's an important driving force in music, and something that should be well respected. One thing that is criticized a lot is whenever lyricism feels a bit too simplistic. And I think that sometimes that idea gets a little bit taken out of proportion. If I, for example, say that the lyricism on a record is a bit overly simplistic, it means that many of the same terms or turn of phrases, ideas, concepts, are sort of being, drilled into the skull of the listener without very much in the way of variety. So you may see a lot of synonymous terms of essentially the same idea delivered within the same song or delivered within tracks off of the same album. Really, a true wordsmith is going to be able to articulate some of these different themes in a variety of different ways. And that's the reason why death metal never feels stale for a lot of people, because it feels like every story is its own song, or every song its own story. So even though some of the different terminology that you get, or some of the themology that you get, feels very similar, it feels very different based around the situation. It's almost like picturing the scene. Overall, lyricism has just a captivating ability, and it's something that we see almost each and every time that we listen to a piece of music that speaks to us. It doesn't necessarily have to tell us that it's going to be alright, no black cloud stays over our heads forever. It can even be something as simple as the wisdom of the universe is destroyed by the fallacy of man. Or if this grand panorama is, before me, is what you call God, then God is not dead. I almost flubbed an Agalloch line. I feel horrible. That's something that can speak to you just as easily as the pop song that's saying, dance around, have fun, party all the time. Either that or hey, it's a party in the USA. It's really based off listener. It's really based off of mood. And it's something that the most amazing of things, whether they be simple or complex, can speak to you in glorious, glorious resonance. But I want to know your thoughts about lyricism in music, Cover Killer Nation. I also want to know what some of your favorite lyrics are, so if you would do me the favor in the comments below to drop some of your favorite lyrics in there, I would be appreciative. Thanks again for the terrific suggestions, Sam. Thank you for being a patron. Thanks to all of the patrons. My name is Cover Killer Nation, and I will talk to you guys very, very soon.